we go here.
Okay. Hitting the record button, so we're ready to roll.
All right, here we go. How you doing, everybody? This is Dennis Michelson. Welcome to the Science of Fantasy Football. Why the science of fantasy football? Well, you put a meteorologist and a biologist together, and they're going to use the scientific method that is guaranteed to make you a better fantasy football player. How can I give a guarantee in anything as flaky and unpredictable as fantasy football? Well, it's simple, folks. Using the scientific method just means we're going to use statistics in a smart way, and that will make you a better fantasy football player. And join him as he does each and every week. He is the fantasy professor. He's a real professor and probably the smartest guy I know when it comes to looking at data. It is the professor, Mr. John Bush.
Yep.
John, it's great news. Great news today. I have some really great news to report.
Okay. Report it.
All of the pre-NFL draft hype, all of the crazy mock drafts, all of the crazy pronunciations of I'm at a count of about 40 Hall of Famers right now that are coming out in this draft.
Big class.
Yeah, if you look at all of the fantasy football analysts and you take every single hot take that they've had about a player, I think 40 Hall of Famers is what we get. And about 75 really good players that are going to be.
So what you're saying is in the rookie drafts, you can't help but fall into a Hall of Famer in your picks.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
draft capital's not worth anything anymore.
Nah.
Just take the first 30 or 40 and there you go.
Easy pickings.
Easy pickings.
You can't miss.
Low hanging fruit. I love it.
There's going to be like 12 running backs.
Yeah, just
this year. 12 rookie running backs.
There's ripe on the vine. Just pick them and load them in your teams. Love it. Love it. How could we not love it?
I'm counting 12 rookie running backs that will finish in the top 6 in fantasy points this year. That's how insane it is.
Opportunity is just there. Everybody's ready to go. That's nice. That is good.
Yeah, fewer quarterback Hall of Famers.
Yeah. Okay.
So I probably only 5 of those.
Okay.
But no, I'm just kidding, folks. You know, we like to kid because we care, but no, this is the last show we have to do before the NFL draft. The next show we'll be doing next week, we'll know who went in the first couple of rounds, first 3 rounds of the draft. And those first 3 rounds of the draft, those are the guys that are always going to be the top guys for fantasy football. Yes, we'll get the occasional Puka Nacua and Isaiah Pacheco unicorns that come late in the draft. But if you were to pick just guys in the first 3 rounds for your dynasty rookie picks, I think you'd do pretty good historically. Because first 3 rounds, the NFL's pretty smart at sorting people out nowadays.
Yeah. So, Dennis, I think you had some homework on giving me a parimutuel view of your opinion of before the draft of some of the rookies, right? Do you have those handy, or do we do that next week? Or?
So I've got,
because you sent me, I know you texted me those, and I thought we might go over 1 or 2 just because I have not really commented on those. I didn't know if you had them up. I could share.
So I didn't get them finished this week. Dealing with the ear infection kind of slowed me down this week. But I do have my quarterbacks ready.
Well, why don't we do that?
I actually have a couple of the rounds or a couple of the positions ready.
Set the Zoom up. You can share. Multiple people can share, but it's just you and I.
Yes, sadly, I don't have this file in the right computer, so I'm not going to be able to share it. But at quarterback, this is how I feel And again, this is top finishing quarterback in fantasy football among just the rookies.
Okay.
Okay. This doesn't mean I think this guy is going to be top 6, top 12, top 18. It just means among the rookie class, 45 out of 100. So I put 45 of my $100 on Cam Ward.
Okay, so let's review. So, folks, we were discussing parimutuel analysis, let's call it, and what that is I gave Dennis $100 bankroll and said if you took money out of that, any amount you want, but you're limited to 100, how would you distribute that on these picks? And oh, you did give me. So I'm looking, Dennis, at the. You texted me.
And I might have made some adjustments.
Yeah, but you had Cam Ward first.
Cam Ward is first, and he's first by a huge margin.
Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Dennis. Why don't I? I was going to try to on the fly here. Okay, so if I hit that, okay, so I am trying to upload that, and you can. So let's talk about Cam Ward, but I'm going to try to share what you texted me here. And so the attachment is uploading. So we'll see if I can share it with the video here. But anyway, Cam Ward, biggest, would he be even money? So that would be about
darn near,
$45,
yeah.
$50,
yeah.
something, assuming 40. No house take, no
correct
Mitchelson house take, right?
Yeah, if you did this with as a parimutuel pool,
right?
Okay, he would be odds on because you take 15% away.
And when you're saying odds on, you're saying opportunity
4 to 5
first year or career.
No. So here's what I'm saying.
Okay,
among the rookie class, this will be the top finisher in fantasy football points year one of his career for 2025. I would put my money on Cam Ward being the top quarterback out of this rookie class in fantasy football points for 2025.
So for this year,
this year only, I do not have a good read until I see where they land.
Okay.
How I feel about them for a career. But right now, no matter where he goes, and most likely he'll go to Tennessee.
Okay.
But 45 out of 100 shares, I would say Cam Ward.
Mm-hmm.
Shedeur Sanders, even though I have my questions about his upside, I'm saying his upside in real football might be Daniel Jones. Okay, so not a superstar, but a starting quarterback in the NFL. 20. I've got Shedeur Sanders at 20. So it shows the relative strength of my opinion of Cam Ward versus Shedeur Sanders.
Backed off on that because what you sent me, you had him at $30.
I had him at 30. I had to drop him because
what changed in your opinion?
Because I changed with the reality that it's more than a 3-man field. Okay.
So, Dennis, for the readers or the listeners, what I think you can take from that is if you want to do this exercise yourself, make note. In other words, Dennis gave me the original. He then changed. So at the end of the season, if we can remember, go back, was that the way to go, or was your first take
my first thought?
Yeah, you're 30 out of 100 better than 20 out of 100. I mean, And folks, if you do 2 or 3 years of this, I think that's the whole point. I think of this technique is this allows you to codify your thinking. It's not necessarily you go into Vegas and bet the mortgage on Sanders or Ward. It's just a way for you to test, are you better at quarterbacks, rookies? Are you better? And maybe you suck at all of them. Wouldn't it be nice to know that? It's like, I'm sucking here. I need some real learning. I need to go take some lessons or whatever. But you don't, until you've done this, you don't have a feel. And so I told Dennis we should kind of do this for the rookies because we share a dynasty, and I think Dennis started another one or two or three or 15 or 100, whatever you're doing, Dennis. And
Only
this is
one.
a good way.
Only
Think
one.
about it. In 2 or 3 years, you'll have some data points and you'll start, figuring out, after my first, say, your top two quarterbacks, it goes haywire. Or you may nail it first four, you're right, that kind of thing. So I think it's a way for people to see how good they are. And you might find you're as good as some of these folks on Twitter, Dennis, that are flapping their chops. And so anyway, if somebody in 2 or 3 years finds out they're really good at this, if they follow, I'd buy you a cold drink if you want to share your at the expo that year. If you'll share me your good data and show me your results here. But anyway, it's getting back to Sanders at $20. So what is that? Is that about 5 to
about a
1 or
5 to 1
something?
shot.
So
Yeah.
a 5 to 1
5 to 1
shot to be. So notice, folks, who went from about even money to 5 to 1. If you go to the track, that's a big difference.
Huge difference.
That's a big difference, Dennis, in your opinion there.
Yeah, and it's a huge difference. And then I've got Jackson Dart from Ole Miss at 15.
So you didn't change Jackson Dart.
Kept Jackson Dart the same. Jalen Milroe from Alabama is my fourth guy at $8.
Okay, so you did change a little bit.
Changed him a little bit. I got Quinn Ewers from Texas at $3. So that's a pretty long, that's 33 to 1 odds on Ewers. So pretty low. Then I've got Will Howard from Ohio State and Tyler Shaw from Louisville at $2 each. Then I've got a group here at $1 hollers. I've got Dylan Gabriel from Oregon, Riley Leonard from Notre Dame, Kyle McCord from Syracuse, Curtis Rourke from Indiana, and the field. Because the field, because I'm honest enough to say that somebody outside of my top 11 could surprise us. That's the Brock Purdy effect, that you think somebody that I don't have on my radar at all could end up hitting. But here's how I would use that data.
Okay.
Anybody under a 20 to 1 shot, I'm probably not taking for my fantasy football team, even in the fourth round of a fantasy rookie draft. So the only 4 guys that I'll concern myself with this year right now, depending on where they land. And again, I will publish this. I will have you publish this. I've got the numbers done for all but tight end, but I'll publish this pre-draft. So I'll get this all out. I'll get this all out here by Monday.
Good.
Then I've got a post-draft column where I will reforecast that same $100.
Yeah, but then you start getting to what I'm interested in, the opportunity index.
Yes.
This could morph into a way to do that in a pari-mutuel way.
Correct. And I'll have that post-draft forecast done by mid to late May at the worst.
Okay. So folks, I do want to tout my handicapper here. Dennis, in the past, has been very helpful in best ball and some deeper picks.
So
And I'm
last,
looking forward
yeah,
to that as a beginning way for us, you and I, to look at these folks coming in, and you got to have a starting point, folks. This is a way to do that. This is not the end. Dennis is not intransient. Injuries could happen over the
yes,
summer, or
yep,
other kind of free
yep,
agents. Who knows? New coaches, craziness. Sometimes personal life gets in. Some of these young kids make mistakes. You just never know where it's all going to go by the time you're drafting in August. So, but it's a way to start getting your opinion, and it is important, Dennis, to do that. And I don't know why we hadn't thought about that before. Both you and I were, we as parimutuel players in horse racing, we've been doing this all our life,
oh
and
yeah, yeah,
it just seems a natural now that I think about it, especially for rookies. Uh, you know, and there's still people are still debating how you grade those, and I haven't really seen. Everybody's got a model and a data, that how fast they ran, RAS scores, you know, the 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 team that they come from, a great team or a small college, or there's lots of ways people are grading things, film study and how they turn and whatnot. It's I don't know. I haven't seen anybody show me enough data to where I'd go make bets in Vegas. To me, that's what I would do. Versus in 2 or 3 years, Dennis, if your metrics are saying there's something, I might take a $2 flyer in 2 or 3 years on some of these your pair mutual view if they're showing, in Vegas is letting you have some odds. I mean, that would be very interesting to find out there's money to be made using your opinion. That would be great if that's the case. Don't know if it is.
yeah. And I don't know if it is, to be honest with you, but I do know that at certain positions, I have been historically better at identifying rookie talent than other positions. And last year, I didn't worry about the RAS score. Bucky Irving was my guy at running back. And I really felt good about Bucky Irving. Right now, before the draft, I mean, there's a bunch of running backs that I've got fairly close. And I don't know who to put ahead of the class. Obviously, Ashton Gianti from Boise State appears to be the favorite. I only put 25 bucks on him out of that 100. So 20 bucks less that I'm putting on Cam Ward. It shows my level of confidence. My second group at running back, Trayvon Henderson, Quinton Judkins, both from Ohio State, and Caleb Johnson from Iowa, all at 12 bucks. So Giante twice as more likely to be the top scorer as a rookie in fantasy football. But that next group of four is tight. And then after that group of four, I've got Dylan Sampson from Tennessee and Bashol Tootin from Virginia Tech at $5 each. Mm-hmm. Then I've got Damian Martinez from Miami, that if he goes to the right team, mm-hmm, he could be that kind of goal line back potential guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted that on the video, Dennis. I just finally got the screenshot.
Yes.
And this was your quarterback. So if people were having trouble visualizing what we were discussing, it's a very simple process here. Dennis has got the PowerPoint. He's got draft, pre-draft, post-draft, August. And so he's, got the money out of 100. It's very easy to do. There's nothing amazing about the math here, Dennis. I just wanted to have this in the video that people could see. And Dennis is going to do an article and we'll have all this for
Yeah.
you.
And,
But I'm
and you
saying
could,
today, why don't you start doing this as soon as you hear this, folks, before the draft starts Thursday? This is Saturday. Try to get this out by Monday. Why don't you try this yourself? And, look at the ADP, Dennis. There's probably ADPs out there for rookies already
yep,
in different platforms. Why don't you line that up, ADP, and then your opinion pari-mutually. And then after the draft, did that change? And then you could track the ADP after the draft. And then in August, and you'll have some data points to track. And are you as good as ADP? Are you better? Are you worse? So
that's a
I would
great
urge
idea.
people to track the ADP and their thing, as well as you could then add Dennis's info. He'll publish that. So you can take the advantage of the crowd, Dennis, yourself, and then at the end of the season, I would put in January or February, Dennis, I'd put what actually happened in a column. And then,
Perfect.
folks, you got the data. And so next year you can go back and look, and you're the two or three of you do this. I think it's going to pay dividends for you folks. And this is to me, this is the kind of thing that we in the science of fantasy football, this is what we're doing, folks. We're trying to do metrics, use that for prediction purposes, and that's where we should all be moving to.
And,
And I think
and,
it's
and
a
one,
great idea, Dennis.
and one thing I will point out here is the second half of this chart.
Yes, down at the bottom.
Last year at this time, had I done this exercise
Mm-hmm.
last year at this time,
Yes.
I would have forecasted one to make the top 9 at a
Yes.
60%. Okay.
Yeah.
And I would have had 2 to be in the top 12. I liked Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels last year. And I also like Bo Nix and Drake May to possibly make the
So
top 15.
this year, are you proposing there's only one in the top 15?
One in the top 15, if that. And that's at a
So
60
this is
40.
another way that you can track the class, which is a
Yes.
top-down guide, Dennis. That I love that idea. I think that is genius idea. Every once in a while, that's why we cook Dennis on. We pull him out of the attic. Crazy uncle in the attic. Pull him out. He's good for something, and then throw him back in. Let him hatch some more plots for us. That is a great idea. And again, nobody I've heard about, Dennis, has ever forecasted like that. So I think you ought to include that as well and start getting a track record.
Yeah.
You
And
know.
that's, again, you don't know how good you are until you put numbers on it.
Mhm.
And you say, would I wager on this? And I would wager that 2 rookies from this class
Yeah.
will finish in the top 24 in points. That I would wager on
So
for this
Dennis,
year.
historically, as somebody coming from the outside, that the fact that you're producing two, I'm wondering, are they going to be overvalued in say Superflex this year, say best ball? You
It's,
you, you see what I'm
yeah,
saying? In other
yeah,
words, you're trying to be, I mean, top 24. There's some established quarterbacks in my best ball Superflexes that I would be looking at before
yes,
necessarily the rookies.
yes.
And I'm wondering, are people going to get trigger happy, in Superflex a little too aggressive, thinking, oh, this is brand new, let me grab one, versus an established player, or having a strategy which you've enumerated a lot of times, like maybe a running quarterback and then say a pocket passer,
Yep.
or have some combination kind of situation in best ball superflex, and having a strategy in which you should write it down, folks, and test that as well. But I'm just wondering, Dennis, historically, have you noticed that people grab a little early some of these in the, say, the top 10, and they shouldn't? They should hold back? Or is that worked out historically? I don't know.
Yeah, there's such a turnover at certain positions. Okay. And we know, again, I've done the research. So I know over the last 10 years,
Yes.
we have ended up with a median of two rookies that have made the top 24 in points or the top 24 in points per game, no matter how you want to measure it. The low has been 0. Okay. So we've had years, we've had 1 year in the last 10 where a single quarterback, it was 2022. We didn't have a single quarterback hit the top 24 rookie. We have also had years as high as 4. We had one of those, though, which was last year. We had 4 of those quarterbacks in the top 24. There were 4 that I liked last year in the top 24. Comparatively speaking, there are 2 that I like this year to reach that top 24. So, and here's the thing, is I don't even have to be right. Ones, I think, if I look at the rookie class and I forecast 4 of them and I pick the right 4, great. But what I'm saying is the relative strength of the rookie class plus the turnover at the quarterback position in the league. We're due for that turnover to continue, sometimes. Like last year, we were ripe. We had 0 in the top 24 in 2022. We had 2 the year before in 2023. We were ripe for a turnover at the quarterback position. Similarly, we are ripe for a turnover at the running back position this year. We haven't had a ton of running backs enter the league here, new running backs. We only had 1 finish in the top 24 in points last year. The median is 2.5 over that period. And we'd only had 2 seasons. That was only our second season out of 10. And they came in 2022 and 2024. So what I'm saying is, not only is this a good rookie class at running back, right, but we haven't had a lot of new talent enter the league for 3 years. So that tells me that I think this running back class, you can be very aggressive on. It did start a new fantasy football dynasty league here last
shocked.
week. Yeah, I know. Shocking. Yeah, I get invited by people that run good leagues historically. And by good leagues, I mean they were fun commissioners to run a league, but I also won money in those leagues. So that's twice the fun there. Okay.
Twice the fun.
So 2 helpings of fun. But what also intrigued me was it's another 2 tight end league. It's a super flex that starts 3 wide receivers, but 2 tight ends. And of course, I had a theory that I wanted to try out.
Yeah.
Year 1, my theory was I'm going to grab a tight end early who is going to last in the league for 5 or 6 years.
Right.
But then I'm going to come back pretty early, maybe round 8, and hint, we're in round 8 right now, and take a guy like Kelsey and maybe follow him up with Jonnu Smith. 2 tight ends that are getting a little older, but are probably going to have pretty solid seasons. So in a 2 tight end league, as long as I can replace that talent as they get old with new draft picks, I'll be okay. And even if I don't, my replacement level tight end year 2 and 3, I might struggle, but I'll have won money in year 1 if I'm right about Kelsey and Jonnu Smith having another good year in them. So that was the theory I wanted to try. But in this league, I am coming up on round 8. Probably will go with Kelsey unless another wide receiver is available.
Do you have the draft board? Shall we look at
the draft board? I probably can share that.
I mean, while we're talking, let's.
Yeah. So I could probably share that.
Yeah. I've given you permission to share.
Yeah. So. Let me get into that. No, I'll show you what that.
Since we're doing the video of this.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I'll show the draft board here.
Yeah.
Let's see. Here's the draft. Here's the draft room. And I should be able to, if I could figure out how to share this, I should be able to share it with the class here. Let's see what we got here.
Should be at the bottom, share.
Let's see. Whiteboards, share screen. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And this is what I want to do is share, I think, this screen right here. And let's see if that works.
There it is.
Hey, all right. So there's our draft board. Okay.
Gotcha.
And I was selecting in position 4.
Yeah. Burrow.
And this is a super flex. So my top rated quarterback this year, I did the way too early forecast of MVP. My top quarterback is Joe Burrow. So I was thrilled to get Joe Burrow at pick number 4.
Okay.
So the draft went by, came back to me in the second round.
Yeah.
Amon-Ra St. Brown is my second rated wide receiver. So I was able to get him in the second round. Coming back to the third round, there were some quarterbacks out there like Drake May that I kind of liked, Jordan Love. But I was like, man, the top 4 tight ends are all gone at this point. It's going to get a little lean at the tight end position in a hurry. Yeah. So Bowers and McBride, I was hoping one of those would last till the second round. Neither did. Okay, these are pretty smart drafters understanding the value of a tight end. But I think Hawkinson's going to be just fine this year. I have him in my tied for 5th at tight end this year. So I'm pretty happy about getting him. And then I love Jared Goff. So when he was available round 4, I took him. But remember me talking about back-to-back quarterback picks in drafts.
And there you go.
In redraft, I wait until round 6 and 7 and 8 to decide where those 2 quarterbacks are going to go.
And there you go. You drafted
in a super flex. Yeah, I grabbed Dak. Dak's a guy that I'm expecting a rebound at. Okay, I got him rated as my quarterback 7 this year, tied for 7. I've got Goff in that same group at 7th. They're with Bo Nix and Patrick Mahomes, tied for QB 7. So to get 3 really good quarterbacks in this draft, I was pretty pleased. And then I used just one of my favorite things to do in 3 wide receiver leagues. So we start 3 wide receivers.
The draft them both.
I draft them both. So I'm hoping that the rumors of Jamison Williams being traded are not going to be correct.
Right.
And that he's a guy that my MVP likes better than total points or points per game.
Yeah.
But you notice I can play the Goff, Sun God.
Oh, yeah. I see that.
Jamison Williams.
Oh, yeah. The super stack.
Super stack.
Yeah, I love it.
And then Then as my third
And
wide
then I
receiver,
love
I
that
grabbed Ayuk.
Ayuk
Yeah.
in that late seventh round. That seems to be really doing well here.
So I've got Ayuk forecast with a 95 MVP.
So you haven't drafted a running back
I
yet,
have
right?
not picked a
Yeah,
running back yet.
I'm seeing that. So
So this is the strategy I wanted to talk about
yeah,
because in this league,
yeah,
we will get done with the regular veteran draft and then we will have a rookie draft,
right.
independent, as if it's a second year league. Well, I don't know where I'll be selecting
Uh-huh.
in the I'll probably be selecting, I think we're going to do it reverse order of what we had for the regular draft. So I'll be drafting pretty late. If we do the reverse order instead of a random draw, I'll be ninth I'll be picking ninth. And my goal was I will probably pick running backs in the rookie draft.
Yeah.
And that's again, game plan going in.
Yeah.
Could adjust as we go. I was set to pick Kamara, and he went in the draft before I got a chance at him. And I was set to pick Joe Mixon, but he went, before I was ready to take him. I was going to take him instead of Ayuk.
Yeah.
Where I took Ayuk, I was hoping Mixon would come back to me.
Yeah.
He did not. And then I was hoping that Kamara would drop one more round than he did also, but he did not. So Kamara.
So what do you think in your next round here? Are you who's running backs? Are there any running backs you're looking at?
So next round here.
Or is this the tight end time?
Well, we could probably go to my queue list and show you my queue. And I have, let's see if it's not letting me go. Oh, here we go. I just got to figure out. Oh, no, don't want to move him. No. So my queue right now.
Oh, well, Godwin.
I've got Godwin number one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would take him.
If I don't get Godwin, then it's Jonnu Smith or Travis Kelce.
Then Pacheco. So if all those leave, you're into the running backs right there.
Still got James Conner, Swift, and Najee Harris that I really like this year. So those are my guys that I feel pretty good about. At running back, I still think there are some veterans out there. Najee Harris is perfectly placed with the Chargers, and that's a guy that I'm really, really higher on than the consensus this year.
Gotcha.
So, but that rookie class, if I look at this rookie class of running backs, I really think there could be as many as 6 that could hit the top 30. That would be an all-time high. That would be tied for the all-time high back in 2020. But I think there are 6 running backs that could make that list. And there has been 6 in points per game. There have been 6 that have made the top 27. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now is I'm probably going to go heavy running back in the rookie draft, depending on how I come out of this draft. But if I end up this round and I can get Godwin to go with Ayuk, then I only need one of those 2 to have a big bounce back season. And I'm going to be looking really, really good. And of course, we do start several flex positions. So the fact that we start 3 more flex positions in addition to the super flex, I'm not worried about a positional log jam because I don't have to figure out which are these 3 guys I'm starting. Well, I can start up to 6 wide receivers on any given week. So I don't worry about if I end up wide receiver heavy. I end up wide receiver heavy. I'll patch and fill at the running back position. Plus, the other advantage I have is there's a couple of teams with only one quarterback right now that tried to get greedy. And then there's others that might end up with quarterbacks that are on the bench. Maybe a rookie gets picked by that team in the draft, and all of a sudden that veteran quarterback is gone. So if I get off to a good start for the season, and I don't have Goff and Burrow on the same bye week this year, and Prescott gets off to a hot start,
yep,
I might trade him. So that's the difference for me for Dynasty, because I would trade Dak Prescott for a future draft pick and a top 24 running back if I needed a running back, because I wouldn't need Prescott except for maybe 1 or 2 weeks all season. So that's kind of my strategy going in here.
Gotcha.
Was grab my quarterbacks early, and then don't be afraid of age. Like, I'm not going to be afraid to take the old tight ends, because even if I get 1 year out of Kelsey, if he helps me win the championship this year, that's money in the bank. I'll have other tight ends that I can plug and play in future seasons. But if I end up with Hawkinson coming back healthy and Travis Kelsey having a typical top 5 year at the tight end position, notice I'm not saying he has to be tight end 1 to be a value.
No.
In a 2 tight end league, if I can draft 2 guys who finish in the top 6 and get them at relatively cheap prices in the draft, I'm doing okay. And the 8th round is the earliest I would consider taking a guy that was only going to play 1 year. Because if he plays just 1 year, but it's a top 5 year, and I got to start 2 tight ends all year, I'm probably going to have an advantage. I already have an advantage at quarterback. I probably already have an advantage at wide receiver. Then I just have to survive at running back. And I know I'm going to get a couple of these old guys. I know that somebody's not going to, people are going to let Najee Harris fall another couple of rounds. And that's where my benefit of thinking he's going to bounce back will be good. Now, of course, I'll protect him with another running back from the Chargers. I'll grab probably the whole backfield before the draft is done. But that's kind of my game plan going in. We'll see how it works. But love that Joe Burrow pick. I think he's number 1 at the quarterback position this year in MVP, in weekly value.
Well, I definitely, what I like about this is you're into the 8th round and your plan is still viable. Nothing has just got you off the rail. You have a vision for what you want to do and how you want to do it. And that, I think, is the big picture, Dennis, that sometimes I think you and I forget that, sometimes people get in drafts and I'm not sure they have that vision across, say, the first 10 picks or whatever. They just kind of, you hear a lot, well, I'll take the best player, but I've found that, yes, that's good, but there needs to be a vision, and I think I would love to see you write an article or 2 about how you kind of set up a vision, how you then enact it. And that may be a little nebulous because, as you know, things can change rapidly, but I don't remember reading a lot about that vision process that I think you have, but I just don't remember a lot of people writing an article to define kind of the framework. I'm not saying I've got to pick this player in this order, but you have let's call it a flexible vision. Maybe that's the title.
Yeah,
What do you think about that? I mean, you have that, and And I hope you realize that, yeah, I've always had that, but I'm not sure we've written or talked enough about having a vision going in. I like that top-down approach to a draft sometime. With my FFPC, uh, usually I have kind of vision scenarios, and it just depends on my draft pick and kind of what's there and players that I'm thinking about. But I don't know if I've thought too enough about having a vision. My vision kind of codifies after I pick two or three, four players. I feel like I get where you're at, probably even pick one. I think you have that. You're a little bit stronger at that process than I am, and it hits me, Dennis, that I could learn from that thinking. So I will look over the editor's shoulders if you do that vision. And I don't know if you need like a step by step. I don't know how you want to craft that. And again, it may take a few seasons of iterations, Dennis, but I would love to see that. I don't think I've ever seen a visionary approach that's not just tied in, oh, I'll take the best player. Oh, I'm going zero RB. You have the better than zero, but that's a framework concept. And then you apply your thinking, and this is Superflex, and that requires a little bit of a different thinking. I would love to see a vision for your dynasty, your Superflex dynasty, your best ball. And, I know we don't have, but I'm saying you might have a little bit more time these days. That would be neat too. A vision concept. And what you think about that? You like that idea?
And I do have a game plan going in.
Yes,
and
you do.
And it really is based on, if this happens, what's my reaction?
And it could be a decision tree type of scenarios that guide you.
Correct. So with this draft in particular, so first pick, it was a slam dunk to me because Joe Burrow was there. Now,
because
Joe Burrow,
you were pick 4?
Before,
imagine you were pick 10 or 11.
Let's make this. That's a good way to put it.
See,
if I had been later, let's say I had been
where Hollywood guy is. He picked Hurts.
Yeah. So at 8 or at 9 rather. Man, I'm probably.
Are you going Barkley? Are you going Bijan? In other words, are you going something complete? Are you going Laporta there, the third tight end, that kind of thing?
At that position, at 9, at pick 9, I'm probably taking Bijan Robinson or Jamar Gibbs. And here's the reason why. Is I'm looking to maximize my weekly value. Chase is the only guy over 125 in weekly value. He was gone. So my next wide receiver, I'm on Ross St. Brown, only a 125. Mm-hmm. Plus, I think he would fall to me in that second pick if I wanted to go that way. Now, he ended up going Hurts and getting Bijan Robinson. So he outsmarted the class, because I would have never let Bijan Robinson get back to him. Because I would have had, if I was 10, 11, or 12 in that draft, Bijan doesn't make it back to him. And I take Bijan and I probably follow up with a top wide receiver, and I end those first 2 rounds without a quarterback. But I'd be happy because I would have gotten 2 elite players. And that's my game plan, is to get elite players. Now, that's not to say Jalen Hurts isn't an elite quarterback, but he's not as elite. I've got him at a 105 MVP forecast. Now, much better than the rest of the quarterbacks left at that point. But at that point, I'm saying, screw it. I'm not getting a top quarterback. I'm not getting a guy over 115. So I'm probably going a different route. So that's kind of how I would have handled that. But to show you how that evolved in my pick 4 scenario. So coming back in for pick 2 in the draft, my second round pick in the draft after Burrow at quarterback. So now Burrow at quarterback, I'm feeling really good. And I'm not feeling the need to take another quarterback at that point because there's too many off the board. You're getting into quarterbacks that are all grouped now. And if I miss on one, I'm going to get somebody else in round 3 or 4 or 5. So I'm not worried about that. The only premium wide receiver that is left at that point, the only super premium guys, where I'm on Ross St. Brown, and that's it. Neighbors was gone. So I had my top 4 wide receivers that are a clear step above the rest: Jefferson, Neighbors, Brown, and Chase. Mm-hmm. So Brown was the only one of those left in the second round. But if either Brock Bowers or Trey McBride had slid that far into the second round in a league that starts two tight ends, that's a no-brainer for me. I will pass on wide receiver. I'll have 3 really good instead of 1 elite and 2 good wide receivers. But I'm on Ross St. Brown was too attractive to pass up. Now round 3 comes around. If Collins, Nakua, McConkey, or Achane are on the board, and they were taken with 4 of the next 5 picks, and there were only 6 picks before I got a chance, but 4 of the 6 were guys that I had ranked as guys I was going to take. Yeah. They were all gone. And then Breece Hall was gone. I wouldn't have taken him anyway. I was tempted to take A.J. Brown in that position and have the Brown brothers, because A.J.'s a 115 ranked guy. I've got Hawkinson at 65 at tight end, but the drop after that is pretty bad. Unless you're taking a chance on Jonnu Smith or Travis Kelce, and I knew they would be available later in the draft. So Hawkinson was a bit of a reach by me, but it would either been Hawkinson or A.J. Brown right there. And because the league starts 2 tight ends, just like because it's a super flex, Burrow was an automatic pick at 4. The automatic picks in the first round for me at quarterback were Burrow, Jackson, Allen. That's it. I think Jaden Daniels, while I've got him pretty highly rated, I'm not so sure I bet on a 1-year guy. Jalen Hurts, I'm a little concerned about this year. Tailed off a little bit. Baker Mayfield, I got rated high, but I don't know which Baker Mayfield will show up any given year. He was so far advanced from what he was last year. I don't think he's going to play back to that season, but a 100 is what I've got him ranked, which would be really outstanding. But I'm not taking him in a dynasty super flex. If this was redraft, maybe. I think Goff has better longevity going forward than Baker Mayfield as far as a top value in fantasy football.
I noticed in the top 3 rounds, only 2 had taken 2 quarterbacks.
Yes.
You didn't.
Yes. No.
And nobody has 2 running backs that I can see.
No. And yeah, that is correct. It's well, the only guy that's got more than two quarterbacks is just off the screen here, and I can't figure out how to get this to
Well, that's okay.
extend.
That's okay.
But he actually has,
Okay.
out of his first 8 rounds, he has five. Oh, I'm sorry. He's 1, 2, 3. He has 3 running backs, and he's traded other picks.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. It's right
interesting. It's quarterbacks,
yep,
tight ends a little early, and wide receivers first 3
yep,
rounds.
yep. Heavy wide receivers. That doesn't
Mm-hmm.
surprise me because we start 3. I'm sorry. This league only starts 2 wide receivers. I was incorrect there, but we have 4.
3 flexes. No,
3 flexes. 3 flexes. So you could start 5 wide receivers total.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is weird. This is a group that is pretty veteran. Most of these are veteran
Mm-hmm.
dynasty players that I've played against in the past. See Baubley, who had the first pick. I've played against him a lot. Flounderbutt, I've played against him. Boyers, I've played against him. Swears, Swyiers, I've played against him. So some of these I've played against before, so I kind of knew their tendencies going in. But yeah, it's and here's the thing is, do I have the perfect game plan right now? Maybe not. It's possible Hawkinson would have dropped to the 4th round. And that having AJ Brown and having 2 really solid top 10 type guys at wide receiver would have helped my team better. But I made the decision, hey, I don't want to be stuck out if all of a sudden tight ends start flying off the board. And I think Hawkinson, while I've got him forecasted at 65 right now, which is in that 5th group, that tied for 5th at tight end, he's got the capability of being up closer to 85 or 90. He's done that in the past. So I forecasted him very conservative, but I think he could be much better. But you're right. I should go through my strategy this year and kind of lay out where I would be. This is different because it's dynasty, so I don't want to be stuck with all old guys.
I mean, you could do a dynasty vision thing. Yep. I'm just saying, Dennis, that you enunciate as you were just describing earlier, and that inspired me about that vision question because I realized it's metric driven, it's historic. You kind of know how things have come out in what you've done. So you've got our MVP metrics, and we're going to have all those other metrics coming together by August. But early in the season, you've got your MVP, you've got historical knowledge since you've done your own research, and that makes your vision. And you consider the league and the parameters. And those are 3 things that I think are part of your vision that I'm not. Yep. I just don't know if people put that together in any articles I've ever read. It's been a while since I've read folks' articles. No offense to anybody out there, but I'm so busy doing my stuff that. But I feel like, Dennis, there's some things you could teach people, and because I listen. When you go through it, it hits me. And it's like, yeah, it inspires me to be better. So by me bringing that vision question up, that's inspiring my thinking towards August. It's like, yeah, I think I do want to think about things. I mean, we're definitely going to have our metrics. I know historically, I've got that as well since I've done my own research. You and I have talked. We've done podcasts every week. So we're going to have a lot of background foundation to draw on to draw our vision. But I don't think I've defined it. I think you just naturally, like I've seen when you do horse racing, and I've paid attention to some of your picks, I see how you approach it, which is different. Doesn't mean better or worse, just different than I do. And I think there's some lessons that you can teach me in that. And I'm seeing lessons here that you could teach me. And folks, I'm going to step back up, top down. You definitely need to find you two or three people that are a little different than you, that are good, and you can learn from. And, I think if you pay for it, sometimes it's not the same as working and talking and doing your own research. I think that makes it stick better versus, oh, I paid $10 for your draft sheet or whatever it is. And I think that's just the lazy way to do it. No offense to anybody selling their draft pick, but I think doing your own research makes it, and then keeping track in your diary, that makes it more real, Dennis. And I think the parimutuel concept makes it more real for you. You have to consider the field when you're making those assignments of the money. It's another trick to help, put that vision together.
Yeah,
And and I should probably have listed all that. I probably couldn't tell you what I just told you here because, I'm getting old. I can't remember
it,
what I just said. But anyway, that's what hits me. That's kind
it,
of my editorial.
and when it gets back to that rookie class forecasting, okay, when it came to the quarterback class, I had a buck on the field. So of the first 11 guys that I mentioned, I felt pretty good that 99 out of 100 times I'm going to hit that group as far as who ends up the top
Yeah.
for 2025. At running back, my field was 3%. At
His,
wide at wide
Historically,
rec- yep.
I just want to jump in before I forget, Dennis. I've seen some experts over the years do an 80-20 split in
Yep.
horse racing. They'll
Yep.
say 80% makes sense in horse racing after the fact, 20% doesn't. So I'm just wondering if putting $1 on it is, should you divide, everybody get $1 or everybody get $2 of the field? Is that a
Yes.
better way? You see, that way it's, I don't know. I've never done parimutuel with fantasy football, so I don't know, but that may be a concept we need to consider as well. And it may be a 90-10 split. Fantasy may be easier than horse racing because sometimes there's stuff that I can't figure out. I
Well,
don't
there's
think the trainer and jockey figure it out.
no, there's sometimes in horse racing, what ends up happening is something that
They
you
didn't anticipate.
you can't read off of the form, okay?
Nope.
And it's no different than having in fantasy football on any given week having one player step up and have a 45-point game. If if you would have me pick somebody to do that in 17 weeks, I probably couldn't get the right week on and the right player. Okay. It's just one of those curiosities, just like a jockey who has won 2 races all year, coming in with a 45-1 shot. There was no way you're going to predict that other than he had a nice name or it was the first gray of the day or some weird thing that had nothing to do with the data. If you're data driven like we are, Professor, you're going to miss some picks.
Yeah.
But who cares? Because the guy that I replaced that pick with is also going to be really good. And that's what I know is when I'm drafting, and we'll go over this more in redraft this year.
Yeah.
when I'm drafting in redraft, I don't care if I'm skipping a guy. Like last year, Garrett Wilson, I thought was going to be having a huge jump in value, but there was no way I was picking him at his ADP. He was people were forecasting the ceiling for Garrett Wilson. He didn't quite hit his ceiling, but that's where they were forecasting him. They forecasted him, London, Pickens, Olave, all at their ceiling. I'm looking at it going, yeah, it's possible. But at this pick, I like this player better, and this is why. I just played the odds. It wasn't that I thought any of those players were bad because I all had them. I had them all graded to have a big increase. Pickens didn't. So I was wrong on Pickens. Pickens was kind of what Pickens has been. But I don't forecast huge jumps for guys and then take them at their ceiling. I want where they're being drafted to be a legitimate level. Like, I don't want to take chances on guys too early in the draft. Now, once you get past those first 5 or 6 rounds in redraft,
yeah,
I'm going all upside, and I will. But
well, that's back to the better than zero,
just better than zero concept, and
which people can read.
Yeah,
on
and
our
I'm
website.
Working on it, and I'm almost done with an updated version of that for 2025. Just the basic theory. Yeah. Not going into any of the details. But
I still would like to see some vision articles this year if you get to it.
Yeah, and what that's going to basically be, it's going to be a group of players. If these guys are gone, I'm pivoting from that position, and that I already know.
But what I'm saying, Dennis, for instance, you decided that your quarterback strategy with your tight end strategy, you kind of already came in thinking a decision tree. If these are there, but if not, I'm going there. And I don't think I haven't seen a lot of that planning. If it's not vision, let's call it a plan. And I haven't seen articles that invite people to do that, because you can put your diary on top of that. In other words, okay, in this situation, this happened. Record that in your diary as well. Copy your draft board, but then come back and just sketch 2 or 3 sentences. This really pivoted. The fulcrum of my draft probably happens early in the draft, whichever way you go, because something or 2 things had happened. You'd kind of want it to be this way. So the concept of a fulcrum is things are pivoting around that event. In horse racing, there's a concept, Dennis. I don't know if it's one thing I'm letting you think about one process. Just remind me, I can explain this other thing and handicapping that I've used on occasion called the fulcrum concept. And I got this from reading a person. His nickname was the Hat. His last Bradshaw, and he was an old horse player, and he talked about finding the fulcrum of the race, and that allowed him to envision the pace and whatnot. So I think that some of that, folks, is part of what Dennis envisions. He may not think of it like that, but maybe that's a way, if you could, outline that for us, Dennis, that might inspire me to think about my vision a little better.
Yeah, and this year in redraft, it's going to be a very interesting deal because I've got basically 5 quarterbacks that I'll play.
This is not rookies. This is
no. These are all veterans. I've got 5 quarterbacks
Yeah.
that I consider to be the elite 5.
Okay.
Okay. But here's the thing is
If we were betting money, would they be 60 out of 100 together, or 80, or
I would
50, or
I will say out of this group of 5,
yeah.
I'm pretty confident that I've got 4 of the top 5 finishers at the end of the year.
Wow.
That's
That's
how
bold.
confident I feel. And again, I'm looking at weekly values.
I, I
Okay.
yeah.
And in those 5 though, I'm not really like, would I love if I got Burrow on all of my teams? Yeah. But he comes with an injury risk.
Yeah.
He comes with a downside risk if Cincinnati's offense just blows because their offensive line is, is their offensive line good? Is it not good? It, you know, I don't know yet. You know, I think they're pretty good. They were okay. They were good last year. They weren't great last year. They were good, but you know, Cincinnati is one of those teams where I'm just a little worried about where they are and how they're going to be. But that mainly goes, I'm worried about their defense in real football. So that means I'll love them in fantasy for
Gotcha.
the quarterback and the wide receiver positions.
Gotcha.
But those 5 guys, I don't care which of the 5 I get on my team, nor do I care if I miss, because if I miss on those guys,
Right.
I've got another 5, got maybe another 3 that I'm feeling pretty good about.
So money wise, are we talking 50-20? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If
It,
you kind of an entry concept.
yeah. So if I miss on the top 5
Yeah.
this year,
Yeah.
I'm saying, okay, I'm okay if I finish top 10. And those next 3 guys
Mm-hmm.
or 4 guys,
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling pretty good will hit the top 10. And maybe one of them will hit the top 5. Okay. I understand. I'll probably be wrong about the top 5. One of them will probably miss on. I'm not sure which.
Mm-hmm.
But of those next 3,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really confident that they'll be, I'm like 80% confident that they'll be, you know, in the top 10.
Gotcha.
And that still leaves me 2 guys. So I got my top 5 and I got my next 3. That leaves me 2 guys that I'm not sure of that will hit that top 10 in weekly value. But out of those top 8, I'd be okay with any of those guys as my starting quarterback in one quarterback fantasy football next year. Some I'd be happier than others,
Right.
but I'll be okay. A quarterback won't beat me if I end up with those top 8. So my game plan going into this draft will probably be to be sort of gutsy and to let the draft unfold after 1 or 2 of those top 5 are taken.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll start thinking about quarterback when it's my turn. If all 5 are gone,
Mm-hmm.
by the time I get that chance, let's say there's a quarterback run and they all go, I'm fine with one of the next 3. And I won't necessarily force that because I know that's going to be a couple rounds later. Mm-hmm. So the next one, when one of those goes off the board, then I really go quarterback at that point because 6 of my top 8 will be gone. I want 7 or 8. Okay. Because my team will be so strong at running back and wide receiver and tight end. Okay. If that happens. So if I miss on those guys, then I'm taking 2 really fast back to back because I'm not sure at that point who the next 4 are to make out that top 12. So I'll take 2. I'll take 2 chances. And even if I end up with one of my guys that are in that bottom 3 of the 8, I'll probably take 2 pretty quick back to back because I've got other guys that I'm curious about that I might also, again, if I end up top 5, I'm probably waiting on quarterback for my second quarterback. But if I miss on the top five, I'm probably taking two quarterbacks pretty quick because then you get into a game where playing the matchups pays off.
Gotcha.
So that's the concept that I have right now. Quarterback, at running back, wide receiver, tight end. My concept is pick the best guy first three rounds. I don't care if I go three wide receivers, three running backs. Pick the best. And I'll be feeling pretty good going into rounds 4, 5, and beyond.
So I did want to throw on top of everything else I've said, I like to look at the patterns of using ADP and look at positional patterns by rounds so I
Yes.
can estimate when things are going to happen.
Yes.
And Dennis, I always put this out, probably June or so. So I start knowing, the sixth round, okay, most likely 10 quarterbacks are gone or whatever. I like to have that pattern as well on top of my vision. And
Yes.
and Dennis knows those articles I've talked about. You can look at last year's, folks, if you want to see what that looks like. But I track the positional patterns using ADP. And historically, I look after the season where points per game and things like that start dropping. And I kind of know historical kind of dead zones and these kind of things that Dennis and I have taken advantage of. So on top of the vision, in other words, when I said vision and when Dennis says that, there are still other layers and things that we use and have that we will bring up later in the season if you've never seen our methodology. So there's more to it than that. Uh, what I don't like, I'll just critique. I see people, the Twitter experts that will say, well, here's my sheet. And when in doubt, just take the top player. And to me, I understand if you have no plan, that's as good, I guess, as any. But folks, I don't think you can win consistently just following anybody's sheet other than your own. And since you've got a diary, since you've used, say, parimutuel, since you listen to what Dennis and I said, I think you can do better than just take whatever somebody's sheet says take. I understand if you're a 12 pack in, but folks, don't put a lot of money if that's, you drink at the end of the season with your winnings, right? And you don't drink during the draft. Like I said, I got my bottle of Johnny Walker Blue, and I'll go get the old granddad whiskey, fill that up, and say, boys, drink up. And you bring it to the draft. Let everybody get soused and inebriated, and that's another strategy. Let it drink up, boys, and that kind of thing. Don't waste good whiskey on the your league. Get them to the old crow or just the generic whiskey. You go to the back, the vendor, say, hey, I just want the whiskey, and just whatever he'll pull out. He brewed it last night and filtered it through his sock or something. Got that charcoal and sock in there, and give the whiskey a little bite with that charcoal taste. So anyway, folks, there are other things besides even what we've said, and but that's what I like to do, and we'll talk about that. I'll bring that up probably in June or when I start doing best ball, Dennis. First thing I'll do, my first best ball, I will copy the ADP before the best ball gets running, and I'll go ahead and map what's going on. I just don't like to be surprised, like, the top 12 tight ends are gone by round 8. I need to know that. I don't
Yep.
need to wake up in round 9 and say, wow, where'd all the tight ends go? if that's my plan, that's fine, but I just don't want to wake up and not have some knowledge that, ADP is telling you the top five tight ends are gone by round two or what, round three. I just need to know that and plan. So part of my vision and plan is based on what ADP is giving me. And then you go deeper into bargains, and again, we'll use our metrics and spot the values and things like that. But that's part of what I would be doing. So, Dennis, that's how I would have, done Superflex Dynasty. I mean, I don't know the patterns, but that's how I approach it. Dennis wins. He doesn't need to do that. But I bet, Dennis, if you did do that, you would probably have an advantage, even more than you have now, historically, if it works for you. The
Yeah,
fact that you haven't done that probably says you don't need to do that because you're making money.
but I actually do some of that because, for instance, when I get to certain points in the draft,
Uh-huh.
I just do something simple as count. Okay.
Yeah.
But there could be 30 wide receivers off the board. Okay.
Right.
As long as my ratings say this guy is worth taking at this point in the draft, I'm not going to care how many are gone.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm looking at value of players. But how many of a certain one are off the board on my list does matter. So if I'm drafting 8th in a redraft, for instance, and I'm saying that by this point there should be 5 wide receivers gone and 3 running backs gone with once I make my pick at number 8. But let's say it's a weird league and 7 wide receivers are taken. Well, I'm not taking the 8th best wide receiver, even if I thought, there's a possibility there. I'm just ladling up that running back talent because if the draft goes that way, then that second running back is more valuable than that 8th wide receiver. So I do keep an eye on who's going, but it's who's going on my list, not on ADP.
Okay.
So if if a guy that I don't value, let's say people let's pick a running back. Let's say that they forecast Jonathan Taylor as one of the top 3 running backs. I don't have him there. I've got him rated pretty high, but I don't have him top 3. My top 3 are pretty easy this year. And this is before I add rookies in, although I don't expect a rookie to make top 3. Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Devon Achane. Those are my top 3. And if one of those guys is available at my 8th pick in the draft, and none of my top 3 wide receivers are available at my 8th round of the pick, or 8th round of the first round, 8th pick of the first round, if my top 4, so for instance, I've only got 3 running backs rated above 120.
Right.
I got 4 wide receivers rated above 120. Mm-hmm. Those are my guys. Those are my early round. That's my first round group of 6 that I'm taking.
Right.
And it goes past that, then I got to think.
You got to think.
And that thinking, like, if none of those 6 are available at pick 8, it doesn't mean I'm going to go to the best tight end, but I'm going to think about it. And, that's where I'm kind of leaning this year, is saying, I look at each group. So over 110 in MVP, I got 8 of those on the running back side. I've got 9 of them on the wide receiver side. Now, I understand I'm not going to be perfect, but that's that's the super elite guys that I've got. Those are the really, really guys that are going to pay off almost every week on your team. And I can go all the way down to 100 on an MVP rating and say that. But you put that in contrast, I only got 2 tight ends at that level of 100 and higher.
Yep.
And if you compare the drop off, so maybe the better way to do this is to grade it versus 100%.
Yes,
like you
could.
do with your picks.
Yes, I do.
And that tells me,
scale it that way.
Yeah, scale it by 100. And it tells me, okay, I get to pick 8 in the draft. And I only got one guy at that 100. And it's a tight end. I know going tight end first round is risky.
Yeah.
But this year, I've got both Trey McBride and Brock Bowers rated the same at 100. My next tight end drops all the way down to 75.
Wow. That's a big drop.
Huge
if
drop.
It was scaled.
Yeah. So if I scale that if I do that same scaling effect at quarterback, I end up with 6 of those guys above that level. If I do it at wide receiver, I end up with 8.
You have a lot more flexibility with the quarterbacks and wide receivers. The tight end is get back to the scarcity concept.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the drop off. It's the replacement value. If I don't take him, what am I going to get? And so, but I know if I take a tight end round 1, what am I missing in round 1? And what am I going to then have to do in round 2? Every pick that you make in the draft has either a large or a subtle change in the rest of your strategy. Again, getting back to my dynasty team here. Once I picked Joe Burrow, it told me second round I can do any damn thing I want.
Yeah.
If I pass on a quarterback in round 1.
So if Bijan would have been there, if you had Brown and Bijan.
Oh, I'm going Bijan Robinson.
Yeah.
I'm jumping for Bijan because the replacement at running back is probably lower. There's fewer of those guys than there are the wide receivers. And you maybe have a little higher injury risk, but I'll take that. But those are the kinds of decisions, like every round in the draft, I don't just have a list of players and take the top one left. I have a decision tree. If I do this, what is my likelihood of getting this guy in the next round?
Gotcha.
And that's kind of the way I play it. I was ready to consider in round 7. I was ready to consider taking either Jonnu Smith or Travis Kelce at tight end. Brandon Ayuk there, I'm like, that's a guy that if he hits, could be huge. So that's the strategy that goes in. And I almost took Kamara there. Okay. That was another guy that I was like, but I don't know if I could trust the Saints offense. If Derek Carr isn't there, that offense was pretty mediocre. So until I see the draft, I'm not sure I'm going to trust Kamara in early drafts. And this will be the last draft I do before, obviously, the NFL draft. The NFL draft, and this is the way we did this strategically with this draft, we wanted the NFL draft to mix things up by about round 9 or 10, just for fun. That was the strategy when the decision, do we start now or after the draft? The decision was made, let's start now because the draft will change our mind by round 9 or 10. Like none of the guys that I took in the first 7 picks will be affected by the NFL draft, because if Jamison Williams gets traded, he's traded into a better situation, more than likely. Cowboys aren't taking a quarterback. Detroit's not taking a quarterback. Cincinnati ain't taking a quarterback. I feel pretty good about those predictions. Nobody's touching St. Brown. He's one of the top 3 at the position. So the draft isn't going to affect him at all. Let's say they get rid of Jamison Williams and they draft another really good. Let's say they get Tatario McMillan, the best rookie, the guy who I've got as the best rookie at wide receiver. I still think he's going to be fine. I will just feel a little less about McMillan. But that's the decision making that you got to think of each and every round. Well, next week, folks, we'll be diving back into more of the professor's data. We'll be talking more strategy, and we'll be talking NFL draft. I'll give you my idea of where I think those rookies might be having an impact. And then I get to start working on that opportunity index. It's so much fun.
That's so. I'm looking forward to it. I enjoyed not having to present this week. I thought we should, it just seemed like the flow meant that we could wait another week on what I found. I got some data here, Dennis. I'm at slide 264. So I have some data. I will just preview that I have completed my fantasy points per game for all positions historically the last 5 years. And I can compare the year before top 12 versus the actual result at the end of the year. So pre and post season, and we can look at positional differences and out of the money and all that. And I think there's some interesting things that, Dennis, I think you'll want to see. And then what I'm going to do with this is I'll take my Bush numbers and lay back through it, and I'll just cut to the chase. I really believe that positions 13 to 24 are where I think the Bush number is going to excel versus, say, fantasy. I think we'll have an advantage over the public there. That's my thinking. I think everybody can spot the good ones in the top 12.
Yes.
But I think where the fall off is the next 12. And I think the third slice of 12 is pretty much, Dennis, of no use for us. I think that's when we need to think about, I'm curious, other methodologies, the MVP. I'm curious to see, can we get an advantage even that deep in? And I'm just setting the table, Dennis, and it may not be next week for us to talk about. I'm sitting there looking at my figure now. So I will say that. But folks, we will have a reference for y'all to look at, and then you can compare, and I can compare the MVP. I think I sent Dennis the deal for the last 5 years, if you want to put the MVP on top of that, and the Bush, and then the COM data I'm going to get to.
We will have so much data and all there for you over at the scienceoffantasyfootball.com. So head on over to the scienceoffantasyfootball.com. Check out the professor's articles. Check out the past articles too, so you can understand some of these concepts. And of course, I'll have more stuff coming next week prior to the draft, so I can go on record as to who I think are the best players. And of course, head on back here next week for another edition of the Science of Fantasy Football.
Get to work, folks.
All right.
Okay. Well,
that was fun.
We don't have a lot of time for after the show, so I'm going to stop recording, but I think it'll be fun. I think we'll have a good one next week and the weeks after. It's going to be good, folks. Take care.
Yeah.